Category 4 storm made landfall just southwest of New Orleans.
You're seeing Grand Isle, Louisiana. That is just for starters. This all happening 16 years to the day that Hurricane Katrina made landfall.
Hurricane Ida has intensified over the warm waters off the Gulf of Mexico as it heads for the U.S. coast.
We are getting a frightening look at this image of Hurricane Ida.
U.S. weather forecasters have warned that the storm approaching Louisiana could be more powerful than Hurricane Katrina. Ida is expected to make landfall in the next few hours.
And Ida is coming ashore exactly 16 years to the day after Hurricane Katrina devastated Louisiana.
Oh my God! No! Short the destructive winds up to 150 miles an hour.
The wind literally takes your breath away as it howls through here.
He says this is the worst he's ever seen.
This morning, hurricane hunters flew their plane into the eye of the storm and caught this stunning picture of Ida building up strength. The Category 4 hurricane made landfall midday near Port Fourchon. 40 people decided to ride out the storm in Grand Isle, defying a mandatory evacuation order. Officials have received multiple calls for rescue.
This is Ida as seen from space. It's a monster.
Well, it is just a few kilometers in terms of top sustained winds of being a Category 5 hurricane, the most powerful on the system used to rate hurricanes. It is blowing ashore now, and it is leveling community after community with that surge and with those unbelievable winds.
Oh, that proof is coming.
All right, everybody, that is just incredible video out of Houma, Louisiana. The eye of the storm hasn't even reached this area.
They say it is the strongest storm to loom over Louisiana in 170 years. And even before Hurricane Ida arrived, you could feel its awesome power. Streets flooded as high tides came with rising waves and the threat of a storm surge, raising the water level maybe 15 feet. Hurricane Ida has been intensifying across the Gulf of Mexico with winds up to 150 miles per hour, a Category 4 hurricane just one level below the highest.
What had happened?
On one of the darkest days for the U.S. military in more than a decade.
Something that's not getting a lot of attention right now is Vice President Harris is on a South Asian trip. She was just in Singapore. Then she flew to Vietnam. She has warned about China in the South China Sea. Can you talk about the U.S.-China brinksmanship that's going on right now?
The tragedy is that the U.S. leaving Afghanistan for the Biden administration is a chance to focus on what they call our main adversary, which is China.
The Vice President of the United States goes to Vietnam to call on Pacific Rim countries to face down China. China is doing some facing down of its own. China joining Russia and Iran. They're going to conduct their own military exercises in the Persian Gulf, no less, just as the U.S. has been conducting military exercises off the coast of China. And Russia both seem to be sending Washington a signal that they too can play war games.
We have just learned from the Pentagon, this is their statement, we can confirm that a number of U.S. service members were killed at the Kabul airport.
A huge explosion, mass casualties, people rushed to hospital.
So I know those are tough words, but these are tough times, and this incompetence has very real consequences, as we've seen today, and people should be held to account.
From the Black Sea to the Mediterranean Sea, the Persian Gulf to the South China Sea, friends and foes alike are flexing their naval muscles in a show of military and strategic force spanning the globe. China launched a series of naval exercises Tuesday, including live-fire drills in the South China and Yellow Seas, ahead of the so-called Quad Alliance's upcoming naval drills later this week. The United States, India, Australia, and Japan will conduct surface, subsurface, and air operations, including live-fire weapons drills off the coast of Guam starting Thursday. It's clearly a move to put some pressure on China and show the U.S.'s commitment to its allies. Not to be outdone, China is also planning another military exercise, possibly later this year or in early 2022, with Iran and Russia in the Persian Gulf, that, according to the Russian ambassador to Iran, will, quote, ensure the safety of international shipping and the fight against sea pirates. But clearly, it's not only about sea pirates. The China, Russia, and Iran naval drills will come close to U.S. military bases in the Persian Gulf region and will likely garner a response from the U.S. and its allies. This, as Vice President Harris is in Vietnam, part of her week-long Asia tour to court America's allies in an effort to counter China. During her visit to Singapore, the vice president took aim at China, saying the country posed a threat to other Asian nations and America's allies in the region, while accusing Beijing of coercion and intimidation in the South China Sea, where China continues to, according to Vice President Harris, push its unlawful territorial claims. But the vice president's Asia trip has largely been overshadowed by the ongoing situation in Afghanistan, and her trip to Vietnam got off to a curious and somewhat alarming start when it was delayed several hours due to a health situation in Hanoi. The U.S. Embassy there released a statement reading, quote, earlier this evening, the vice president's traveling delegation was delayed from departing Singapore because the vice president's office was made aware of a report of a recent possible anomalous health incident in Hanoi, Vietnam. After careful assessment, the decision was made to continue with the vice president's trip. The term anomalous health incident is basically the U.S. government's code word for the Havana syndrome, a neurological condition defined by dizziness, nausea, migraines, and memory loss, among other symptoms. It got the name after American officials based in Havana, Cuba, first reported experiencing the symptoms back in 2016. And since then, there have been dozens of other cases, more than 200 and counting, of U.S. State Department, CIA, and embassy personnel and other U.S. diplomats and officials reporting it in China, Russia, Vienna, Austria, and most recently, Berlin, Germany. At least 2 embassy staffers reportedly were sickened by these same symptoms and will at some point reportedly be medevaced out of Hanoi for treatment. Vice President Harris's spokesperson said the delay had nothing to do with the VP's health, but so far, the vice president has said nothing about the possible Havana syndrome health scare in Hanoi.
Tell me about what you make of U.S. officials warning the public, warning explicitly over and over again in recent days that an ISIS-K attack, ISIS Khorasan attack at the airport, targeting U.S. personnel, targeting civilians, just like we saw today, that it was not only a threat, but that it was a severe threat and an increasingly likely one.
It seemed to most of us that ISIS just came out of nowhere. We've been looking at this situation as United States versus Taliban. All of a sudden, we've got a third entree coming into this. Why did ISIS do this, what are they trying to prove?
I think that it was probably something that they've been working toward. They basically want to tell Taliban, look, you might think that you run the government, but we are actually in charge. There is a tremendous disconnect between Taliban and ISIS. They don't like each other. Taliban actually is more moderate than ISIS, and that's why you saw today reports that
that's it. Pardon me for interrupting, but I was taken by your words. ISIS, you say ISIS is telling the Taliban, you think you run this country? No, you don't. We run this country, or will soon.
And this tells you with certainty that Taliban will be unable to control ISIS or Al-Qaeda attacks on U.S. interests.
Then I have to ask you the following question. If that's true, when the U.S. commander today took to the microphone and said, we are working with the Taliban, it kind of makes sense.
It does in this case because Taliban has an ulterior motive. They need recognition. They need international recognition. They need funding desperately. U.S. has cut off $10 billion right now. They need money.
So they really are a common enemy.
They are a common enemy. Yes, they are, for the most part.
For both the United States and the Taliban, ISIS is a common enemy.
That is correct.
Interesting. Wow. But think about what we're telling our viewers tonight. We were at war with the Taliban for 20 years, and just a week and a half after we're done with the war, now we're siding with them against another enemy. That sounds crazy, even if it does make sense, as you just explained to us.
Much of the Louisiana and Mississippi Gulf Coast is bracing for what could be a major hurricane this weekend. Tropical storm Ida is moving toward the Gulf of Mexico and is expected to make landfall on Sunday.
Tonight, a new tropical storm has just been named, expected to become a powerful hurricane headed toward the Gulf.
In Tennessee, after that record-breaking rain and a devastating...
Tonight, new images of the catastrophic destruction in parts of Middle Tennessee.
Henri, the first tropical storm to hit the region in nearly 15 years.
Henri trounced through New York City Saturday night with a torrential rainfall, setting a record for the most rain in a single hour with nearly 2 inches. The downpour forced a halt to the star-studded homecoming concert in Central Park.
Please seek shelter for your safety.
Oh, I missed. A lightning bolt hit the top of the monument. Officials who work there say the strike actually damaged the monument's electronic access system.